Hello YouTubers, this is GoldStandards0924 coming at you with another video. So this is just going to be me, reviewing some of the past WrestleMania pay-per-views. I mentioned this in my vlog that I was considering maybe doing a couple of WrestleMania reviews, since, especially now that WrestleMania season's around the corner. So I'm just gonna kind of review maybe about a handful of WrestleManias. I'm not gonna do all 29 of them because it might seem like a chore. And on top of that, I didn't really grew up watching the WrestleManias from like the Rock and Wrestling period. So don't expect me to review all the WrestleManias. This is just gonna be maybe a handful or a few of them that I'll be doing. Um, so I did a review on WrestleMania 14 a year ago, so I'm not gonna like redo it, but this is just gonna be like mostly Attitude Era stuff. And I know it kind of sounds pretty biased since I grew up watching the Attitude Era, but I do have some clear memories of watching some of these pay-per-views growing up. Um, so I'm just gonna kind of review a lot of the WrestleManias from the Attitude Era. So it's gonna probably go up to maybe 17 or 18, but not sure at that. But I'm just gonna review some Attitude Era WrestleManias. So I don't mean to sound like biased when I'm just saying I'm only reviewing the Attitude Era stuff, but those are like one of the few ones that are very clear in my head. And I guess I could do one for Ruthless Aggression, but I'm not gonna like push myself and make it seem like a chore. So without further ado, let's just get started. So WWF WrestleMania 15, it's definitely a show that really hasn't aged very well. There was like a lot of questionable booking and just a lot of shenanigans that were going on throughout a lot of these pay-per-view matches. Um, so the show opens up, with Boys to Men singing "America the Beautiful," since this was their hometown of Philadelphia, where WrestleMania was held that year. And then after that, we have is the opening match. So we have a triple threat match with the hardcore title on the line. And, Billy Gunn was champion going in, and he defended the belt against Al Snow and Hardcore Holly. Um, to my knowledge, this was the first triple threat match to occur at a WrestleMania. Because I don't remember any triple threat matches that have happened even before it, at least not to my knowledge. Um, I think a lot of people don't seem to kind of bring that up. The match was kind of okay. Some people kind of shit on it. I didn't think it was that bad to me personally. Um, I had fun with some of these matches. There was a spot where Billy Gunn oversold a moment where Billy Gunn ran through the steel steps and he just flipped over. And then there was another spot where Billy Gunn threw Al Snow through a table. So you saw like a lot of weapons being used, especially for the hardcore title since it's basically no DQs and false count anywheres. So eventually the match didn't really last long, and Billy Gunn went for like a Faymaster on, I believe it was Al Snow, and then Hardcore Holly took out Billy Gunn and allowed to pin Al Snow to win the hardcore title. This match was okay. If I had to give a star rating, maybe I'd give it 2 stars. And also on this, the booking was pretty questionable here. Road Dogg was supposed to be in this match because he was already feuding with Al Snow and Hardcore Holly at the time. But for whatever reason, they switched them around, and like Billy Gunn and Road Dogg, the New Age Outlaws, both were in singles competition, and then for whatever reason, they switched their roles around for no apparent reason. I think that was another thing that kind of puts it down. But other than that, I guess the match for what it was okay. But the build up going into it was just really questionable. And overall, this match was okay, but nothing you should be watching it. I won't recommend it. Nothing really too memorable happened. Um, then we have is the tag team titles. We have the champions Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart defending the belts against Tess and D'Lo Brown. So this was kind of like a last minute addition. Tess and D'Lo Brown won a tag team battle royal on the pre-show Sunday Night Heat. So the winners of that tag team battle royal would go on to become the number one contenders for the tag team titles. And apparently Tess and D'Lo Brown were the last sole survivors. So apparently they were still brawling and they didn't realize that they were the winners. So yeah, the only way to win is like have only the last two guys in the ring would go out and become the winners. I believe originally this was supposed to be Mark Henry in Tessa's slot because D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry were still a team even though the Nation of Domination had split up. So yeah, they were the only two guys that were still in cahoots even when the Nation broke up. But apparently the announcers said that Mark Henry was out due to a knee injury. So apparently D'Lo Brown was on his own. And then, Tess, was kind of like a random opponent that ended up teaming up with D'Lo Brown. So yeah, they were the challengers. And the match didn't last very long. You saw like, a lot of these guys were pulling off finishers a lot earlier. So it kind of really indicated that this match was obviously not going to go on for long. And the match ended when Owen Hart went for like a missile drop kick, and then Jeff Jarrett did a jackknife bridge. So apparently, Jarrett and Owen retained the tag team titles. Just not a really good match. It just felt very rushed in a lot of places. And then we have it's not really a match, but it's more of one of WWF's forgettable experiments that they did around the time, and it was called a Brawl for All match. You had like Bart Gunn taking on the celebrity Butterbean. So basically, the Brawl for All was an experiment that they did back in the summer of 1998, where it was basically like a work shoot fight, and I think it was more of a response to the success of guys like Ken Shamrock and then Dan the Beast Severn, who both of them were like from that had like some sort of MMA background. So eventually, WWF tried to milk in their success by conducting this experiment called the Brawl for All series, and it ran for about June to August. And then Bart Gunn happened to win the Brawl for All, and apparently they brought in Butterbean, for celebrities, since WrestleMania is known for their emphasis on bringing in some of these celebrities that were relevant at the time, and basically the Brawl for All concept was kind of viewed as a failure since it didn't last very long. So I mean, Bart Gunn, Butterbean, it wasn't really much you really expect. The match was over before it began. So Butterbean like knocked out Bart Gunn, and that was basically it. So it's not going to be rated. I'm not going to give it a specific rating. It was just kind of there, really. So it's not applicable. So that's basically Brawl for All that. And then you have the Big Show taking on Mankind. And the winner of this match would go on to be the special guest referee for the Rock Austin match. So basically, Big Show and Mankind, prior to this match, they were both brawling backstage, and then apparently, Mankind was down and out. And then, Big Show and Mankind had their match, and it wasn't a very long match. Mankind won by disqualification when Big Show chokeslammed Mankind through 2 stacked chairs. So basically, just the match was very forgettable. And then there was like a little segment with him and Vince McMahon, since Big Show was part of the corporation. So apparently when they brought Big Show, they had this sort of dissension going on with him and, Vince McMahon and The Rock. So they couldn't really get along in a way. So eventually there was like a lot of trash talking, Vince McMahon trash talking the Big Show. And then this kind of led to the Big Show, physically assaulting Vince McMahon, and then Big Show was under arrest, and then he was shipped out of the building after that. But the Big Show Mankind match, just nothing really memorable happened. I mean, it was just kind of there. And you would think that, Mankind, having like WWF title reign, having an all-out war with The Rock, and then he gets this sort of match, and it didn't even last that like past 5 minutes. So yeah, it wasn't really much of a WrestleMania match. It's more like a match that you would see on like Monday Night Raw or Sunday Night Heat. It's just a terrible match. And then we have is the Four Corners match for the Intercontinental title. We have the champion Road Dogg defending the belt against Ken Shamrock, Val Venis, and Goldust. So apparently this is not your typical four-way match, but this is more like a Four Corners match. And it kind of works slightly different from the regular Fatal 4-Way match, because you had to you have like these two wrestlers squaring off in the ring, and then you just basically have to tag one of your opponents. So eventually, the 4-way match is more of just two guys wrestling in the ring, maybe a little brawling at ringside. But I mean, this match, I guess it was alright, but nothing too memorable. Ken Shamrock had this thing with Val Venis, because Val Venis was dating Ken Shamrock's sister, Ryan Shamrock. And this kind of really went back to like the Royal Rumble, when Val Venis interfered in the Ken Shamrock Billy Gunn match. But even though Shamrock retained the title, and then the next month at St. Valentine's Day Massacre, Val Venis won the IC title from Ken Shamrock. And then there was like a lot of title changes. Road Dogg won the IC title on an episode of Raw. So eventually, and I don't remember how Goldust got in the mix, but eventually it's kind of made it to the Four Corners match. So I was discussing about the New Age Outlaws earlier in the video, about how their roles got reversed for whatever reason, and it kind of really totally killed what the storyline had, and the build up. But eventually this was kind of like elimination rules, so eventually it came down to Road Dogg, and I think it was like Road Dogg, and yeah, it was Road Dogg, and I believe it was Ken Shamrock. Apologize, I'm just having a little I almost forgot my memory there. So eventually Road Dogg ended up winning, retaining the IC title here. It was a match that was just kind of there, really. So I mean, I guess it was like an okay match. It's really disappointing though. And then we have is Triple H versus Kane. So basically, this kind of stems from the night after the Royal Rumble, where Chyna turned on Triple H, and then Chyna started to align herself with the corporation as well as Kane. So eventually, they had like a couple segments where Triple H threw a flamethrower on Kane, and then it was just a lot of over the top stuff that was going on, and Kane even lighting a fireball on Chyna. So it was kind of back and forth, heated rivalry. So eventually this kind of culminated into a match for WrestleMania. I mean, the match was alright. Nothing, nothing too memorable. Triple H going out there kicking ass, and him and Kane were kind of brawling around the ring. Now there was like a spot where Kane brought in like a steel steps, and then Triple H did like a drop toe hold on Kane on the steel steps. I was kind of surprised that the referee didn't even call the DQ. I'm not really sure why, even though they never stated that was a no DQ match. And it took Chyna's interference to end up getting the DQ, so apparently Kane won by disqualification. but eventually, Triple H, took advantage and whacked Kane with the steel chair. So apparently Triple H and China reunited, and we all thought that DX was back together, or so we thought, and I'll get to that a little later. So apparently it seemed like Triple H and China were on a ruse. So apparently they thought this was like some sort of setup. So eventually, Kane won by disqualification, but Triple H and China got the last laugh. It was an okay match. I mean, nothing that really pissed me off besides the DQ finish. So there you have it. That. And then we have is the women's title defense. We have Sable defending the title against Tori. This was a very sloppy match. So there was like a spot where Tori tried to go for like a crossbody, but she connected pretty poorly. And there was a spot where like Sable and Tori were trying to go for like a backslide pin, but Tori kind of messed up, and she fell on her knees, and it was a very sloppy match. Something for like a women's title match. And the build up to this match was basically Tori being a fan of Sable, since Sable was like the most over diva at the time. And then for whatever reason, Sable somehow turned heel, and then Nicole Bass interfered and cost Tori the match. So eventually Sable won with the Sable Bomb and retained the women's title. I mean, this match was just really terrible. So Sable retains the women's title. So it was a pretty bad match. And then we have is the European title on the line. We have Shane McMahon defending the belt against X-Pac. This was actually a surprisingly good match. This was actually a rematch from Raw where Shane McMahon won the European title from X-Pac. And then there was like so much build up going on where Shane McMahon brought in the Mean Street Posse, and they were both ganging up on X-Pac. So there was like a lot of stuff that they did going into the build up, and so X-Pac and Shane McMahon, they had their match, and it's a pretty solid pacing match. Just some good back and forth here and there, and I mean, there was a one where X-Pac tried to attack the Mean Street Posses who were like sitting in the front row seat of the crowd. And then I believe Tess accompanied Shane McMahon, so Tess kind of did what he can to kind of help Shane McMahon in case X-Pac was beating his ass. So yeah, I mean, and then eventually Triple H and China came out to even the odds, quote unquote, or so we thought. And it all turned out to be a swerve. So eventually, while China was distracting the referee, Triple H pedigreed X-Pac, and then Shane McMahon went over to get the cover and won the match there. So this was actually a pretty good match. It's kind of really a shame that Shane McMahon isn't in the WWE anymore. He was a pretty good wrestler. I mean, even though he wasn't, even though he was kind of more of an on-screen authority figure, but in terms of like in-ring work, I think he is pretty underrated as far as that goes. But this was probably a pretty good match. One of the few bright spots of this pay-per-view. So it's a pretty good match. And then we have is the Hell in a Cell match between the Undertaker and the Big Boss Man. What more could I say about this? The first two Hell in a Cell matches at least had some importance. Undertaker and Shawn, they fought, they were feuding at the time, in a pretty epic Hell in a Cell match that ran for about 20 plus minutes or so, and at least had some purpose. And then, 1998 happens, and then Undertaker Mankind, we all remember the spot where Undertaker threw Mankind off the cell and landing onto the announce table. But unlike those two Hell in a Cell matches that came prior, you had the third one, and it just really just scratches your head. It was like, out of all the guys that Undertaker could have feuded, and it's like, Big Boss Man. Um, so eventually, there was like a lot of tension going on with Undertaker and Vince McMahon, and how there was like a moment where like Undertaker like burned a teddy bear that Stephanie McMahon had, um, and then they were like doing all this crazy stuff with Undertaker and his Ministry of Darkness, where they were breaking into Vince McMahon's house, and a lot of these crazy stuff that was going on. So eventually, out of all the guys that Vince McMahon had under the corporation, the Big Boss Man stepped in. Um, I mean, this is, to my knowledge, the shortest Hell in a Cell match in Hell in a Cell history. And it's definitely not a very memorable one. And the match didn't really go on for more than 10 minutes. It ran for less than 10. Um, and eventually, Undertaker went over the Big Boss Man. It just felt like a regular TV match. Um, I didn't really see a point in having the Hell in a Cell there, despite being used for attraction purposes. Just a really terrible match. I don't know why they didn't do Undertaker versus Kane. I think that would have been a more logical approach. Because, Undertaker and Kane were like feuding for about 2 years and so. And, Kane was also another member of the corporation. So they could have used the Hell in a Cell match to have it come full circle and really put an end to that feud. But in reality, they did one in 2010, and by that point, Undertaker and Kane were past their prime. Yeah, just a really terrible match. Um, so then we have is the main event, and this was like I believe it was a no DQ match for the WWF title. So you have the champion, The Rock, going in and defending the belt against Stone Cold Steve Austin. Um, yeah, this is a really great match. So apparently, you saw them, brawling back and forth. They were brawling in the crowd, and they brawled a little bit, on the stage. And there was a spot where Stone Cold looked like he was gonna go for like a pile driver or some sort of power bomb, but then like Rock backflips Austin, and Austin accidentally landed pretty bad on his leg. Um, and then eventually, Stone Cold did, an elbow drop on the announce table. And, Rock, going out there just smack talking. And, even the moment where he spit Stone Cold with the water bottle. So, I mean, the match was going good. And then, the referees kept getting knocked out. And then basically, Vince McMahon comes out, and he and The Rock team up and gang up on Austin. And then Mankind came out and sort of evened the odds. So the match ended when Stone Cold went for a stunner on The Rock and won the WWF title. So I mean, it was a really great match. I mean, I think a lot of the overbooking kind of hurts the match a little bit. But it was still a pretty fun match to watch. I think that this is like Shane McMahon and X-Pac. This was one of the few exceptions to the WrestleMania 15 match. And, eventually, Stone Cold, he hadn't held the belt since September of 98 when the belt got vacated. And it was like a controversial finish. And then Survivor Series, Rock won a tournament and became and won the WF title for the first time. So eventually Stone Cold had to go through all these obstacles, and by WrestleMania 15 he ended up triumphing over the corporation. So Stone Cold won the WF title here, and then Vince McMahon came out, and then Stone Cold stunnered Vince McMahon as usual. So that's really how the show ended. But overall, WrestleMania 15, just a pretty terrible pay-per-view. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. If you're watching it just for maybe for nostalgia purposes, I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, if you enjoyed the pay per view, that's fine as well. I respect your opinion at that. Um, but me personally, I mean, WrestleMania 15 just wasn't really a much of a spectacular pay per view. Um, just I don't know. I mean, people. I mean, it just really was a bad pay per view. So overall, I don't really recommend it. I guess this pay per view just, like I said in the beginning of this video, hasn't really aged very well. So yeah, this is basically my thoughts on WrestleMania 15. Just what do you think about this pay per view? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? So you can either leave a comment down in the comment section below. So yeah, this is basically it for this video. And until next time, Gold Standards User 924 signing